Welcome. As you listen to these words, just notice how you have arrived here today. Maybe your day has been full of tasks, messages, and noise. Maybe the body is tired, but the mind is still moving, still planning, still worrying a little. Or maybe there is simply a quiet curiosity inside you, a sense that there must be a more balanced, more awake way to live. In this session, we will explore a very simple doorway that is always with you, your breath. We are not going to turn this into a performance or a show of advanced techniques. Instead, I want to walk with you slowly through the understanding of why breath is so central in yoga and why modern science is beginning to say the same thing in its own language. By the time we come to the end, my intention is that you will not only know, in theory, that breath is the key to the mind, but you will feel a new respect for your own breathing. You will see clearly how it shapes your thoughts and emotions, and you will have simple, realistic ways to work with it in daily life. So, let us begin with the most basic question. What is breath? In yoga, breath is not only air moving in and out of the lungs. It is the visible part of something subtler, called prana, life energy. You can think of prana as the power that animates you, the force that allows the body to heal, the mind to think, the heart to feel. Science uses different words: oxygen and carbon dioxide, gas exchange, the autonomic nervous system, electrical signals in the brain. But whether we say prana or oxygen, we are pointing to a simple truth. Without this continuous, rhythmic movement of breath, nothing else in the body or the mind can function for long. What is very interesting is that breathing is both automatic and voluntary. Your heart beats without control. Your digestion usually continues without your control. But breath is different. You can let it happen by itself. And you can also decide to change it, to breathe faster, slower, deeper, shallower, at any moment. This is not just a strange coincidence of evolution. It is a doorway, because breath sits between the unconscious and the conscious, between the body's automatic systems and your deliberate choices. It becomes a bridge you can use to influence what normally seems beyond your control: your stress levels, your emotional reactions, your state of mind. Think about it. When you are frightened, nobody has to tell you, breathe faster. It happens by itself. When you are deeply relaxed, nobody has to say, slow down your breath. That also happens by itself. But the reverse is also true. When you choose to breathe as if you were safe and calm, you begin to send that message to the body and the brain. This is where yoga and science shake hands. Let's look at it from the scientific side for a moment. Your nervous system has a part that handles stress and action, the sympathetic branch, often called fight or flight. And it has a part that manages rest, recovery, and healing, the parasympathetic branch, often called rest and digest. When your breath is fast, shallow, and irregular, you are usually leaning toward the fight or flight side. When your breath is slow, smooth, and especially when the exhale is slightly longer, you naturally activate more of the rest and digest side. A key channel in this communication is the vagus nerve. It travels from your brain down through your face, heart, lungs, and digestive organs. When your breathing is calm and rhythmic, receptors in the lungs send signals up this nerve, telling your brain, it's okay, we can soften. We are safe enough to relax a little. The brain then adjusts your heart rate, your blood pressure, your muscle tension, even the chemistry of your blood. This is not a philosophy. This is a measurable, repeatable physiology. Heart rate variability, the healthy variation in the time between each heartbeat, often improves when you breathe slowly and steadily. Higher heart rate variability is linked with better emotional regulation, more resilience to stress, and even better long-term health outcomes. So, when ancient yogic texts say, When the breath is unsteady, the mind is unsteady. When the breath is steady, the mind becomes steady. They are not only offering a spiritual idea, they describe a very practical, biological reality. Now, let us bring this closer to your own experience. Think of a time when you were truly anxious. Maybe I'll be waiting for important news. Maybe in conflict with someone you care about. Maybe lying awake at night, replying to worries. If you could replay that moment and watch only your breath, nothing else, just the breathing, what would you see? For most people, anxiety brings faster breathing, often in the upper chest, sometimes through the mouth, sometimes with little pauses or gasps. Now remember a time of deep contentment. Maybe you were near the ocean, or sitting quietly after a satisfying day of work, or holding someone you love. Again, if you only watched your breathing in that moment, you would probably see something slower, smoother, and fuller. The belly might have moved more. The exhale might have been softer. From this, we can see something simple but powerful. Emotion changes the breath, but we often forget the second part. Breath can also change emotions. In daily life, this relationship becomes a loop. You feel stressed. You unconsciously tighten your breath. The tight breath sends even more stress signals to the brain. The brain reacts by creating more anxious thoughts. Those thoughts tighten the body further, and so on. The loop can also move in a different direction. You notice stress building, and instead of letting the breath tighten more and more, you consciously soften it. Slow it down. Make it more rhythmic. That calmer breath sends a different message. We are not in immediate danger. The brain receives this and gradually reduces the stress response. Thoughts become a little less dramatic. The body feels a little lighter, and you have more space to choose your response. This is what I mean when I say, breath is a key to the mind. It is a lever you can actually use, right in the middle of the storm. From the yogic view, this relationship between breath and mind has been observed for thousands of years. The ancient texts speak of prana flowing through channels called nadis, energy pathways quite similar to what Chinese medicine calls meridians. The main currents of prana are said to move along the spine and throughout the body, feeding both physical and mental activity. When prana is scattered or blocked, the mind becomes restless, dull, or confused. When prana is smooth and balanced, the mind naturally becomes clearer, more focused, and more peaceful. Pranayama, the yogic practice of working with the breath, is not just about taking big breaths. It is the intentional regulation of prana through breathing patterns, with the aim of making the mind more steady and more capable of deeper meditation. Patanjali, in the Yoga Sutras, places pranayama right after asana, the physical postures, and just before the deeper stages of concentration and meditation. The message is, we prepare the body with postures. We refine the breath with pranayama. Then the mind becomes fit for meditation. Notice the order: body, then breathe, then mind. Structure, then energy, then attention. In modern life, many people try to jump directly to the mind. They say, I want to meditate, and they sit down with a very agitated nervous system, tight breath, and a racing mind. Of course, after a few minutes, they feel discouraged. This is not for me. My mind is too crazy. I cannot meditate. But often, what is missing is not talent for meditation. What is missing is this middle step, a relationship with breath. Now, let us look a little more closely at how breath affects specific parts of the brain. Inside your skull, different regions carry out different roles. Very simply, deeper structures like the amygdala help detect threats and create emotional reactions, especially fear. The prefrontal cortex, near the front of your brain, helps you plan, make decisions, and regulate emotions. The insula helps create awareness of what is happening inside your body, your heartbeat, your breathing, your gut feelings. When you breathe rapidly and irregularly, the amygdala can become more active. This is useful if you are in real physical danger. But in modern life, the danger is often psychological. An email, a comment, a memory. If that state goes on for too long, your rational, reflective prefrontal cortex can become less effective, and you may find yourself reacting automatically, saying things you later regret, or feeling overwhelmed by thoughts that you know are exaggerated. When you slow the breath, especially when you breathe through the nose in a calm, rhythmic way, you activate pathways that enhance prefrontal function and insula awareness. You literally help the wise part of the brain come back online. At the same time, the amygdala's alarm response can soften. So simply by changing how you breathe, you shift the balance of power within your own brain, from reactivity to reflection, from fear to curiosity, from chaos to a more ordered awareness. In yogic language, we might say, you are pulling prana back from the scattered senses and gathering it toward the center, toward awareness itself. Let us bring this down to some very ordinary situations. Imagine a typical workday. You are moving from one task to another, perhaps sitting for long hours, eyes fixed on a screen, with many small interruptions and demands. Most people, in this scenario, unconsciously hold tension in the jaw, the shoulders, and the belly. The breath becomes shorter, sometimes almost held, because our attention is so absorbed outward. We don't even realize that we have been holding our breath for minutes at a time. By the afternoon, the body is exhausted, the mind is less sharp, and small problems feel much heavier than they need to. Now imagine the same day, but with a small shift in your relationship to breathe. Perhaps, once every hour, you remember to simply notice, how am I breathing right now? You don't need to close your eyes or do anything dramatic. You just bring awareness to the sensation of air moving in and out. This single act already changes things, because it shifts you from automatic pilot to conscious presence. From there, you might make a tiny adjustment. Soften the belly. Let 1 or 2 breaths be a little slower. Let the exhale be just a bit longer. You continue with your work, but something inside you has moved from completely driven by external demands to somewhat rooted in an inner anchor. Over days and weeks, this small pattern has become a habit. Your baseline breath becomes slightly more relaxed and coherent. Your nervous system spends a little more time in balanced states and a little less time in survival mode. This is not a dramatic overnight transformation. It's not meant to be. It is more like gently turning the steering wheel of a car, degree by degree, so that hours later you find yourself on a very different road. Lifestyle is essentially the art of repeating certain patterns. Yoga as a way of life means bringing awareness into those patterns. How you sit, how you eat, how you speak, how you react, and very centrally, how you breathe. Some people hear about breath work and immediately think of intense techniques. Very rapid breathing, strong breath holds, complex ratios. There is a place for more advanced techniques, but they are not the foundation. And for a stressed, modern nervous system, they can sometimes be too much. The foundation is simple: a friendly, curious relationship with your own natural breath. From there, you can gradually explore more if it feels right and guided well. There are a few misunderstandings about breathing I want to gently correct, because they can create unnecessary confusion. One common idea is that deep breathing always means taking huge breaths. So people start pulling in as much air as they can, lifting the chest, expanding the ribs aggressively. Often this leads to overbreathing, taking in more air than the body really needs, blowing off too much carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is not just a waste of gas. It plays a key role in balancing the acidity of your blood and in how oxygen is delivered to your tissues. If you lose too much of it too quickly, You might feel lightheaded, tingly, or even more anxious. So deep breathing, in a yogic and healthy sense, is not about volume. It is about depth and ease. The breath moves low into the body, involving the diaphragm, and it flows without strain. Another misunderstanding is that breathing through the mouth is equal to breathing through the nose. Nasal breathing has many advantages. It filters, warms, and humidifies the air, and it supports the production of nitric oxide, a gas that helps dilate blood vessels and improve oxygen delivery. It also tends to encourage calmer, more regulated breath. Mouth breathing, especially if it is chronic, can be linked with increased stress responses, poorer sleep, and even changes in facial structure over time. So, as a general lifestyle orientation, gently encourage nasal breathing as your default, unless there is a medical reason that makes it difficult. These simple points, not overforcing big breaths, and favoring nasal breathing, keep your practice grounded, safe, and sustainable. Now, let us connect all of this back to motivation. Why should you care deeply about breath as a key to the mind? Most people are not actually seeking perfect breathing. They are seeking something underneath. Less anxiety, more clarity, more energy, better sleep, a sense of inner stability. The mind is often the main obstacle. It pulls you into regrets about the past, stories about the future, comparisons with others, and harsh judgments about yourself. Trying to fix the mind only with thoughts is like trying to comb the wind. You push one wave of thought aside. Another appears. You correct one belief. Another old pattern surfaces. Breath gives you another handle. It is physical, it is immediate, and it is always present. There is something very empowering in knowing that. No matter what is happening in your life, you are never completely powerless. As long as you are alive, you have this instrument, your breathing, that you can shape in small ways to influence your internal state. This does not mean you will never feel sad, angry, or afraid. Yoga does not promise that life will stop being life, but it does offer you more freedom in how you move through those experiences. Imagine a difficult conversation. Someone has said something that hurts you or challenges you. Immediately, the heart beats faster. The mind starts preparing defenses or attacks. The body tenses. If you are not aware of the breath, you are likely to ride this wave into impulsive speech or withdrawal. If you have cultivated even a little awareness, you might notice the breath just became sharp and high. In that very moment, without anyone knowing, you can allow 1 or 2 breaths to lengthen the exhale, to travel a bit deeper into the body. This does not erase the difficulty, but it may create just enough space for you to respond with more wisdom. Over time, this is how character changes, not by reading inspiring quotes once, but by living small moments differently, again and again, with the help of tools like breath awareness. In the yogic tradition, breath is also considered a mirror of your inner truth. When you are not being honest with yourself, when you are forcing yourself into situations that deeply conflict with your values, the breath often shows the strain. It becomes squeezed, held, or fragmented. Listening to your breathing can therefore become a kind of inner compass. For example, perhaps you are considering a new commitment, another project, another relationship, another big change. On the surface, your mind can create many arguments for and against. But if you quietly observe how your breath responds as you imagine each path, you may notice a difference. One option may bring a slight opening, a sense of space, an expansion in the chest or belly. Another may bring quiet constriction, a subtle tightening. This is not a fortune-telling trick. It is simply learning to include the body's wisdom in your decisions. The breath becomes part of your inner consultation. In this way, breath as the key to the mind also means breath as a key to deeper self-knowledge. Because as you observe your breathing across many situations, you start to see patterns. You notice where you habitually contract, what kind of people or environments calm you, and what kind stimulates too much agitation. With this awareness, you are no longer completely at the mercy of your conditioning. You start to make choices that support balance, clarity, and genuine joy. Now, you might be wondering, isn't all this very slow? Will simple attention to breathing really change anything significant in my life? The honest answer is, yes, it is slow. And yes, it can change a great deal. Remember how habits are built. Every day, you are already repeating certain patterns, many of them unconscious. Those patterns are shaping your brain, your nervous system, your relationships, and your health. Bringing breath awareness into your day is like planting a different kind of seed. In the beginning, it felt very small. You might remember only once in the whole day to check in with your breathing. But that one moment matters. The next week, it might happen twice a day. Then, certain triggers, like feeling rushed or entering a stressful meeting, automatically remind you to tune into your breath. Not because you are forcing it, but because you have begun to link those experiences together. Eventually, your baseline changes. You find yourself returning to your breath almost naturally. When life feels intense, at that point, the practice has moved from being something you do to something you are. This is yoga as a way of life, not as a class you attend once or twice a week. In that sense, what we are talking about is deeply motivational, because it means your effort is never wasted. Every sincere breath of awareness becomes part of the foundation of a calmer, clearer mind. Let us also acknowledge something important. Many people carry deep pain, trauma from the past, long-term illness, grief, loss, or chronic anxiety. For such people, even noticing breath can sometimes feel uncomfortable at first. The body may associate certain breathing patterns with old experiences. Memories can arise. To summarize, let us weave together the strands we have touched. From science, we learn breath directly influences the autonomic nervous system, affects heart rate variability, modulates brain regions involved in emotion and decision-making, and can shift us from states of fight or flight into states of rest and digest and social engagement. From yoga, we learn breath is the vehicle of prana. Its quality reflects and shapes the state of the mind. And by working skillfully with breath, pranayama, we prepare ourselves for deeper levels of awareness, concentration, and meditation. From everyday experience, we see our breath changes with every emotion. And when we begin to consciously care for the breath, emotions and thoughts become more workable, less overwhelming. If this is you, know that there is nothing wrong with you. Your mind and body are simply protecting you in the best way they know. In such cases, working gently with the breath, and perhaps in the support of a skilled teacher or therapist, can be incredibly healing. The key is kindness. We never force our breath. We never push ourselves to the point of distress, just to follow a rule or technique. Yoga emphasizes ahimsa, non-violence, non-harming. This applies to how we treat others, but also to how we work with ourselves. So, when you explore breath as a key to the mind, let it be with a soft attitude, curious, patient, and compassionate. If certain approaches feel too intense, you step back, simplify, and return to what feels safe. In this way, the practice itself becomes a training in self-care and self-respect. And from the heart, we understand. Breath is not just a technique. It is a companion to your entire life journey. It was there with your first cry. It will be there with your last sigh. And it is here, in every moment in between, available as a gentle key to open the door of the present moment. As you go back into your daily life after this video, you don't need to remember every detail we have discussed. just carry one simple question with you. How am I breathing right now? When you wake up, when you sit at your desk, when you feel stressed, when you feel joyful, when you lie down to sleep. From time to time, ask this question, not to judge yourself, but to reconnect with yourself. Over time, that simple question will lead to deeper insights, new habits, and a different quality of mind. You will start to feel that the mind is not an enemy to fight, but a space you can learn to organize, to calm, and to clarify. And the breath is your main tool for doing so. So as we close, let this understanding settle quietly inside you. You carry a key within you, one you did not have to buy, one that is not dependent on any device or external system. It is as close as your next inhalation, as gentle as your next exhalation. When life feels confusing, when you feel lost or overwhelmed, you can always begin again here, with the simple act of noticing and caring for your breath. May this awareness support you in creating a life that is more grounded, more awake, and more aligned with who you truly are. Thank you for sharing this time, and for your sincerity in exploring why breath is truly a key to the mind.